managed to gather the top decision makers of some of the major streamers and broadcast networks, and I know that a lot of you are going to want to hear what they say. These are the people that make the decisions that many of you are waiting for. So I think they're all standing outside, and if they can hear me, I'm going to introduce them. So please welcome Jeff Gaspin from Netflix, Jen Levy from Amazon, Alison Wallach from Fox, Rachel Smith from NBC Universal, Mitch Graham from CBS, and Rob Mills from Disney. Have we all got microphones? Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. This feels like something we haven't seen in a while, getting the great and good of the reality TV business together. Before we get into sort of some specific questions about each of your jobs, I'm curious, just in 2026, whether, what you think of the health of and the state of the unscripted television business. Jeff, seeing as you're sitting next to me, I'm going to start with you.
I think it's better than it has been. It's still very healthy at Netflix. It really hasn't changed much for us. We started about 10 years ago, and we really haven't stopped. So, certainly understand what's gone on in the marketplace. Really that cable buying spree has really slowed down. Rachel's here, and Bravo is one of the few channels that has really kept a robust, marketplace. But in terms of Netflix, we're certainly buying and as healthy as we've ever been.
Jen, go down the line.
Yeah, I mean, when you're asking about it in general, I think it's a really exciting time. Like, I think, Love Island is like the biggest, buzziest show on TV. It's all anyone can talk about. Shows like, to see a show like Traitors pop through. I know I shouldn't be talking about other people's show, but I don't have much of a slate, so it's okay. But to see that happen, to see what's happening with Summer House and like the buzz and, what Rob has done at Hulu, like, I just think it's an incredibly exciting time. It's a contracted market, but when you have a show that is buzzy and bingeable and talkable, like, there is an audience, and that feels great.
Rachel, do you want to plug some Amazon shows?
Beast Games.
Actually, I'm going to keep plugging Bravo. Similarly, Bravo just had its best quarter ever on Peacock. So there's a lot of growth, and I think, there is compaction, but really there's a lot of exciting ideas. And like Jen said, when you get that whole ecosystem and the social world engaged and you create some urgency, nothing feels bigger. It's very exciting.
Mitch?
Yeah, I think, it's at CBS, it's a priority for us. We still consider it a strength, and, it's an exciting time. We obviously have Survivor 50, and it's rare to be a part of something like that. And, that's a campaign that we launched 2 years ago, and just to see the response from the press and the fans and the players and everything, it's been really exciting. So for us, it's always been a priority for us, and something that we'll continue to invest in.
Rob?
God, it's hard being at the end of the line. Funny you said that. I would agree with everything they said, but no, what I do think is great is that I was about 26 years in now. Survivor was 2000. The fact that the ones that were sort of the trailblazers, Survivor, I think Dancing had a resurgence this year, has been great. And then we're also growing new formats with things like Traitors and Love Island. So I think it's actually in a better place than it's been in quite a while.
That's good. Alison?
The very, very end of the line. No, listen, at Fox, unscripted has always been a super important part of the fabric there, and I think it helps that our CEO is a passionate former showrunner and loves the genre. So I think it's exciting because I think it's nice to see people taking chances and trying new things. I think you go around the world and you see some people who feel like, no one's taking real risk, and no one's, it's all traditional old IP, but I feel like there's a lot more of that happening now, and certainly at Fox, it's been like an important part of our strategy, so.
Yeah, good. Well, look, we're going to dig into all that. I'm glad to hear you say, largely positive, because I think there's been times over the last few years where if we'd done this, we might not have necessarily felt quite as bullish, so nice to hear. Jeff, talking of Netflix, where are you at now? Because you have this sort of breadth of show. You do.
I'm at Netflix.
You have the sort of straight reality show. You and I have talked about your upcoming show, Calabasas Confidential, a fair bit. You have the dating shows like Love is Blind and Age of Attraction. And you've got this sort of big new wave of shows coming, The Golden Ticket, Clue, Monopoly, some of these sort of bigger swings. So talk me through where Netflix is in terms of strategy.
Yeah, I mean, we're big and broad. We still, buy a lot of shows across a lot of categories. Dating is something that's worked really well for us. Age of Attraction, our most recent dating show, did quite well. So that's a big category for us. Competitive reality, we're taking some big swings. Golden Ticket, I'm very excited for everyone here and the audience to see it. It's an immersive world. I really do believe it's like something you've never seen before in reality TV. We did it with Squid Game to an extent, but to take a movie and make it come to life and to watch the cast walk into that chocolate river room and really walk into the movie, I think is something that only Netflix does or will do, and hopefully we'll do the same thing with Monopoly and bring that game to life, sort of Jumanjify it. So we're really excited about that. We have docuseries, Calabasas Confidential, as you mentioned. I have 2 nieces, they're 20 and 22, and they came out to visit from New York. And they didn't want to go to Disneyland and Universal. They wanted to go to Calabasas and Erewhon. So, and my kids grew up in Calabasas, so I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. And I knew that there was a good cast there, and I'm really excited for everyone to see that one as well.
Over the last couple of years when we've spoken, you've talked about this idea of the sort of broadcast-style entertainment format. And we're about to see some of these actually come on to Netflix soon, right?
Well, we have Funny AF on right now with Kevin Hart, which is doing well. It's like a Last Comic Standing, but it's really not a show broadcast would do, mostly because of the language and the point of view. And so that's exciting. We will have others coming. We just tried Star Search. Unfortunately, probably won't have a second season of Star Search. But we did deploy a new technology with our voting, so you could vote with your remote, and it was wildly successful. Over 80% of people who watched the show used the voting capability. They didn't have to download an app. There wasn't a second screen. So, again, I think I said earlier, we're only 10 years old in our reality journey, and so we're going to keep trying things. Some will work, some won't. But it's still an exciting time and place for us.
I want to get into the live side of things, so maybe I come back to that one. Jen, congrats on the new job.
Thank you.
You've just started getting your feet under the desk, but you've made a couple of hires. You've hired Tiffany Fagus and Ariana Rue.
Yeah.
So you're clearly starting to think about what's going on. Can you give us an idea? I appreciate it's early, but where you're thinking about the unscripted strategy at Amazon?
Yes. I am very lucky to have both of them, by the way. I think in the time that I spent at Netflix and even the time I spent away in the last year and a half when I had like a semester abroad as a producer, thank you, Alex Baskin, wherever you are in here. But I learned a lot and I got a lot of perspective. And I think the thing that when I look back at my time at Netflix and I think about what's happening in the industry, I think the sort of shape and size of a show doesn't really matter. I think it's sort of the quality of the characters, it's the quality of the story, it's the world you're building, it's the journey you're taking the customers or the viewers on. And I think that's kind of what I'm focused on. I sort of talk about it as like lean in urgency versus lean back TV. I think in streaming, lean back TV doesn't really fly. It doesn't work for us. It works well in other places. A lot of people are watching it on their phone.
Does that rule out certain genres?
Like we're not gonna do game. Like other places do game really well, but I don't think it works in streaming. At least not yet. I think potentially it could when the audience and the product, the user experience catches up to that kind of viewing, but it doesn't right now. And so I talk about like it's got to be this lean in urgency, and so whether that is a big dating format or social strategy game, or it's a docu-soap, or something like Love on the Spectrum. Like that is one of the most interesting titles I think right now in reality TV. That pops to #1 on Netflix now, and so I think it's about the characters. I think it's about the journey you're taking them on. I think it has to feel holy shit and talkable. That's kind of the barrier. And that's the way I'm thinking about it in general.
Have you started putting anything into development? Have you started buying anything yet?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've a couple things. Yeah, and spread out in categories. We're buying big formats. We're buying character-driven docus, docu-series on the documentary side as well. So yeah.
Dating, we've got a whole panel on dating. I want to talk about that. And it obviously works for Jeff, Age of Attraction. I know Rob's got some dating shows. What is it about dating and the sort of reality follow doc that works in streaming where game doesn't, for instance?
I think it's a soap opera, right? It's a narrative that pulls you through, just like a great scripted series does in streaming. And it's talkable, it's bingeable, it catches that flywheel on TikTok. I mean, it's the same journey that Dancing with the Stars takes you on, and that you have to talk about it and you have to come back to see what's happening and where, how people are moving through that journey. I think it's really about that.
I have two show-specific questions I want to ask you. The best show I've possibly watched this year is the second season of Last One Laughing, the UK version. When are you going to do an American version?
It's the number one question I get asked,
I bet.
and we're talking about it.
Okay. I bet the other number one question you've been asked this week is, are you bringing back The Apprentice? Are you bringing back The Apprentice?
That show is not in active development. Can I add one more thing? I also think the big challenge in streaming and what we're focused on is going younger. And I know everyone is sort of talking about it, but Beast Games is a huge success, massive show, massive audience, and it skews younger. And I think figuring out how we can follow that with other formats and series is super important.
And in terms of going younger and doing dating, those are a couple of things, Rachel, you're kind of used to, right? Let's split them up between the Bravo verse and the Peacock verse. Let's talk about Peacock. Do you agree with Jeff and Jen in terms of the areas that work in streaming for you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, need an urgency. And I think, it's hard to separate Bravo out of that, because Bravo next day on Peacock, it's 40% of the audience comes from Peacock. So that has invited a much younger and broader audience into the Peacock universe to watch reality in general. Love Island has obviously taken off, and then we can launch younger skewing shows off the back of that. So absolutely, but you need shows that you want your teenage kids to be talking about. They have to have a sense of like hotness and topicality and just like of the moment, and everybody's going for that. And it's lightning in a bottle, obviously, but that's what will break through, because there's such tremendous competition for eyeballs from social media, from YouTube, and then the strength of the storytelling as well. I mean, I think really related to what Jen's saying, we've had these shows on Bravo for 20 years. Housewives, it's just turned 20, like Andy was saying, and these people people consider them their friends. They're in their living rooms with them. They feel deeply about them. It's almost irrational how much they can feel about them. And we have to be aware of everybody's mental health and the cast and everything, but it's this level of relatability that you've got to know these people over years. There's vulnerability. It's aspirational. Aspiration is a huge part of all these shows. So it's like I can see myself in that cast, and I can relate to them, and there's vulnerability, but they're also a heightened version of me, and a better looking version of me, and a funnier version of me. And I think that's a pretty winning combo.
Well, that sounds like Love Island. You sort of managed to persuade young people to watch a show multiple times a week. Is there any way of recreating that lightning in a bottle, or is it just, who knows?
We're trying. We're definitely. It's all we talk about.
We're all going to try.
We're all trying. That's if any of us can do it, we're succeeding at our jobs. I mean, I will say we're extremely excited about Married at First Sight. We bought that off Lifetime. 3 seasons. The first season was already shot and cast, so this is the first time we were able to really put our own stamp on it. It's 20 episodes, and it's definitely got some urgent texture to it.
You
drama.
think it'll look different than perhaps the Married at First Sight that we're used to?
It looks more like, if anyone's familiar with the Australian and English version, that just sort of some of the format changes and the casting. It's sort of a bit sexier.
And what about Bravo? How has Bravo, I mean, cable, I think Jeff alluded to it earlier, and it's struggling on the whole, but Bravo isn't. What's that about?
Bravo, I mean, touch wood, it continues to grow. We've got 550 hours this year, more original programming than ever. I mean, again, Bravo is now obviously more than a linear channel and a linear experience. It's got a complete other life, born from Peacock, from the streaming exposure, from social accounts, from the in real life experiences, so like BravoCon and watch parties and the activations that we have. And so I think what we've managed to do is create a universe and a community where people feel seen, and it's part of their identity. And so our job is to just keep feeding that and keep those franchises alive and fresh. And
we've got Top Chef, we've got Kristen Kish from Top Chef coming later. Given that Andy punted on the question, when are you bringing Miami back and the Housewives? You are the one to make that decision.
I've got people in the audience lots of people, I want to know that. I mean, things come back, they do. I don't have a date, but you never say never.
Okay. Mitch, you mentioned it earlier, 50th season of Survivor, which just sounds nuts.
Crazy.
Yeah. And you said you've been planning for this for some time.
Yeah, it's funny. I still remember I got an email from our president of CBS in 23. I think I was during season 45 where I think I got the email at 3 a.m. and she said, "I think Survivor's having a moment. What are we doing for 50?" So it's something that we've been talking about forever, and I think I mean honestly, I think that day we got on the phone with Jeff and started figuring it out. So it's but I will say it's hard to get shows to punch through. Like we're all competing for the same thing, people's times. And we've got these sort of long-running shows that continue to do well on broadcast and streaming and everything, but it's hard to sort of keep them fresh and everything. And I will say, like season 50. I'm a fan of the show first, but Jeff and that team have just out-delivered from this season. I think you can put that season up against any season we've had, and it's probably the best. And I think sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's not just Survivor. Amazing Race is still on air, Big Brother, which I referenced earlier. Is it a case of, don't fuck these up, or like?
By the way, my old colleague was like, as long as it doesn't die on my watch, we're good.
Yeah, you don't want to be the guy that killed Survivor, right?
That's it. You don't want to be that guy.
Yeah. But in the last year or two, you've sort of been able to add one or two. You don't have a lot of space on the schedule, but you've been able to add The Road, which Taylor Sheridan was one of the exec producers, and you've got a new cooking show, which with Padma.
Yeah.
What was it about those? Are you happy with how they've performed? Do you think they can, either of those will get to season 50?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think for us, it's always trying to figure out what's going to work for CBS. I think when we talk about our new cooking show, America's Culinary Cup with Padma, we had been trying to get into the cooking space forever. And I think we heard 1,000 cooking shows, and we couldn't really figure out what that would be for us. How's it going to connect with our audience? How's it going to work on broadcast and streaming? And that was we met with Padma. We sort of figured out how it could work for us, and part of that is also, we're also looking at our schedule and trying to figure out where we can place things, right? So, because to your point, it's sort of hard to get on our schedule. We have an incredibly strong scripted lineup. So when we're developing and trying to figure out show ideas, part of that is, where's it going to live? And we knew we had a sort of a whole post-Survivor 50, and we got together with Padma and our executive producer, Josh, who's here, and they figured it out and cracked it, and we're incredibly proud of that show.
I know, talking to Amy Reisenbach a couple of years ago, she was talking about wanting
the
cooking
moment.
shows. What has she tasked you with next? What's the next on the menu?
I think she's, look, I think for us, it's not really a specific genre or, IP or anything like that. It's really just trying to find shows that, if you look at Survivor and Big Brother and Race, for example, just those three, they've got universal themes, great storytelling. The audience sort of can connect with these players and the journeys they go on. Those things work really well for us. But again, a little bit of that is trying to figure out where something could live on the schedule. For example, at CBS, we always talk about, we have incredibly strong scripted audience. So how do we bridge the gap between our scripted audience and our unscripted audience? So last year we went out and bought and developed Harlan Coben's Final Twist, just sort of a way to sort of get us into the true crime space. And that show, we're going to pair it with two of our strongest scripted shows in the fall with FBI and CIA. And we just think that's another way of just finding new audiences. So it's just, again, trying to find things that we think can work for our audience and feel distinct and unique and loud and all that stuff.
Rob, you've had a busy couple of months.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad your first question was about the health of the industry and not my own personal health. I appreciate that.
I've seen you since, so I know your health is okay.
Yes, it's fine.
And you did have the Get Real event last week, so you were in fine form.
Thank you.
Let's break out ABC and Hulu, though.
Great.
Talking of what Mitch was referring to there, long-running shows, Dancing and Idol, similarly been on for a while. They did start to dip a few years ago, and then something happened and people started watching them again.
Yeah, I think that, one of the first, I was actually telling Mitch, at one point we had a head of scheduling at CBS, and he said, we were talking about Survivor ending like several years ago, and then in the fall it all of a sudden came back, and then we were, you started to realize, we've seen it too with our long-running shows, and you started to realize somewhere along the way as these things matured that you really get a chance to reboot these shows every year with a new cast, and these formats are really rock solid, and it's hard to, so many things now come and go. It's hard, those ones that are so good. The most important part of the job is just really, polishing the crown jewels and making sure they're good. It used to be, okay, what's next? And we got to find the new great format. But these things are really built to last.
And you've similarly found young people watching them.
Yeah, dancing was sort of strange because it used to, I said the weird thing about this season, you used to say, if somebody would say, I'm going to see Dancing with the Stars, they'd say, oh, my mother would be so jealous. And now this was the first time you'd hear somebody say, oh, my daughter would be so jealous. And I think it's a combination of obviously the casting and people, and it is strange too. Now some of the, Alex Earl is, it also used to be, the joke about that show was like, when you say Dancing with the Stars, stars would be kind of in air quotes. And now Alex Earl, I would argue, is as big of a star as anybody who's around right now.
Big enough.
I hope so, because I got a show with her.
Yeah, I
You're a
realized-
breeding ground
I set
for
Jeff up
Netflix
for a
reality
shameless
shows,
plug. Yes,
Rob.
I didn't
Yeah,
realize that.
you're,
Yes, exactly. So I think it's that, and then also I think, the simulcast on ABC and Disney Plus really helps us meet viewers where they are. There's a huge contingency who watched traditional linear TV through a broadcast network, but there's also younger viewers who know nothing but streaming. So I think when you can do those two things, it's great.
Another franchise that has been around a lot is The Bachelor. I've got to ask you about that. How are you feeling about given...
Still around.
It's still around.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about the overall franchise given what's happened over the last few weeks and months?
Well, it's definitely in a challenging place, but it's over 20 years old, and, it's either... The thing about that show is it really seems like it's either on a peak or in a valley. And, 2 years ago, I can't remember the seasons where it came out, but it was a little bit it felt like it was a little bit on a bit of a downward trajectory. And then we launched Golden Bachelor with Gary, and then we had Joey Graziadei as the Bachelor, and then felt like it was as big as it ever was. So you're always really a season away from being back with that show, or, being down, like I said.
Yes. Do you think we'll ever see Taylor Frankie Paul's season of The Bachelorette?
It's a good question. I think the first thing we care about with Taylor is just how she's doing, on a personal level, her and her family. She had a big custody hearing yesterday that I know was pretty widely covered. So, we want to make sure she's okay. And then in terms of seeing the show, it's still day to day, but so we'll see. But I think she's getting into a better place, which is good.
I'll swing back on the Hulu stuff in a moment, but I want to ask Alison, for the Fox take, Fox buys a lot of shows. You have more space on the linear schedule for unscripted than most linear networks. What's the feeling what's the mood in the camp in the Fox lot?
I think the big word is loud. When anything that starts to come in that feels quiet, it scares everyone. And I think that's, so everything that is in development that is that we're keeping an eye out for, that the network is super focused on, is stuff that feels like it really, it'll evoke an emotion from people. It can't just be sort of quiet.
You have a mix of these shows, the Master Chefs, Hell's Kitchens, and I guess I'll put Masked Singer in this. It's been around a while. But then you buy a lot. We announced Marriage Market with Whitney Cummings this morning. So you sort of have a couple new shows every year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a balance, I think the network has, leaned in on some familiar IP, but with a twist. I mean, the success of Fear Factor, House of Fear, shows that there's, that they're not afraid to kind of go back and take something that might be familiar, but when you put a big twist on it, that had a huge opening. I think it was like 17 million multi-platform viewers or something. So, and in Weakest Link, I mean, they're willing to take some sort of safe bets, but then also try brand new things like Extracted, which came out, and and now Marriage Market, things that are multi-generational, things that are broader, that will have co-viewing, because that's really been the success of Fox. Masked Singer sort of kicked that off with family viewing. So
you need to put Johnny Knoxville in some of those tanks.
Oh yeah,
Come on. Thinking about IP. Jeff mentioned Squid Game. I know Jen, has a Fallout reality show in the works. When are you just going to do Baywatch, the reality show, Alison?
Wait and see.
It's been pitched a lot.
It has been.
It has.
Hold on, you've all nodded there. So have you all heard the Baywatch reality series pitch?
It's been, I mean, a lifeguard show, I think, has been made. I think. Maybe
don't
not.
think it was
Maybe
made.
It
I don't
obviously
think it
did
was
very
made.
well.
a lot to Bravo, yeah.
I want to talk about this sort of reality. I'm going to call it the reality show, but this sort of follow doc, the Mormon Wives, the Alex Earl type of projects. At least three of you, I'm looking at Netflix, Hulu, and the NBC Universal world, have this kind of reality universes where, you've got the Get Real event. Jeff, you did something similar in Santa Monica Pier. What is the value, and Rob, I'll start with you. What is the value? You're getting together all of the casts of your shows, the Naders, the Mormon Wives, etc., and sort of celebrating this. But is there any added value for having that rather than just launching individual shows?
Yeah, I think there is. Once you get critical mass, I mean, you have to have the foundation built. I mean, we were fortunate at Hulu. We sort of had Kardashians. We sort of refer to, to the Hulu reality versus the house the Kardashians built. And then, it was brick by brick with things like Mormon Wives and Naders. But then when you can do that and have an event like a Get Real, you announce, if you announce these shows in a vacuum, like say we announced last week, $1 Million Nannies, it'll get a little bit of pickup. But because we had them in conjunction with all the other stuff we were announcing, we got so much more out of it. So you get a lot of bang for your buck. It's sort of the 1 + 1 = 3.
You're nodding there, Rachel, is that?
Yeah, no, it's a great way to migrate different fandoms across your shows. So, for instance, when we brought Ariana from Vanderpump onto Love Island, that brought in a huge new audience there. And it's a great on-ramp as well for certain talent. Like we had housewives like Phaedra Parks on Traitors, and people saw her for the first time on Traitors, fell in love with her, and then the library for Real Housewives of Atlanta is boosted. So first of all, we love keeping the talent in our family. We've got, scripted opportunities, red carpet opportunities, reality opportunities. But yeah, it is definitely 1 + 1 = 3. And I think then it also feeds into the kind of in real life experiences like BravoCon, and people, get to meet these people. And so as we are constantly looking for ways to keep them, occupied and happy in our world.
Look, they're great fan events, but they're also great social events. So, we get a ton of influencers who come and repost, and they use it for content. And, you bring up 1 or 2 reality stars, it's not going to excite the masses. You bring 20 out or 30 out, or, the bands from Building the Band to perform, and you just create this really fun, exciting event that I think just multiplies the reach and social.
Is there certain types of shows? So at the Netflix event, it was largely people from things like Too Hot to Handle, Perfect Match, those types of shows. But then Building the Band, you mentioned, and I wonder, will we see that in a year with Monopoly, Clue? I guess they're more competitive, so they might not necessarily be the same.
Yeah, those casts are more fungible because they're one-season casts. Sometimes you get a great character in one of those casts, and you then cast them in something else. So Harry Jowsey, for example, I think he's been in three of our shows already, and I think he's in a Hulu.
He's been in a Hulu show.
He's migrated over here.
He's going to be in a Hulu
We
show.
apparently, yes. We traded Alex Earl for Harry Jowsey. Apparently.
Yeah.
Yes.
Certain talent just, are the talent that keeps giving. So, I'm excited.
Who doesn't have a Harry Jowsey show? That's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
pretty much.
Yeah.
We have a.
I think he's on Survivor this fall too.
Might be.
Sorry.
So anyway, certain like Housewives, certain characters just really pop, and they just generate huge fan bases.
Another big issue, I'm going to look at you, Alison, producing abroad. A lot of your shows are made either in Ireland or Australia. Rob Lowe famously put his head up and said, why are you sending 100 Americans to Ireland rather than or it's cheaper to send 100 Americans to Ireland than it is. Just curious, you all produce, I know, obviously Love Island is in Fiji, Beast Games shot some of it in the Middle East, and I'm sure the rest of you have this. Curious, is this where we are now? Or do you see that we could get some production back to the States? What would we need to make it happen?
We actually produce a lot in the States. We produce our Gordon Ramsay shows, Kitchen Nightmares and Secret Service. We just did Marriage Market. It really depends on what the show is and what it needs. And for the studio-based shows, we've had a lot of success in Ireland because we found a great producing partner there in Bigger Stage who knows how to execute at the quality that certainly the network was looking for. And now with the tax credit there. So with the budgets coming down, it just makes sense to do a lot of the studio-based shows over there. But again, it really just depends on what the show needs. We are absolutely leaning into filming here if we can.
It also adds to the production value, right? Like you have beautiful beaches and roaring hills, and it's part of the creative as well.
Yeah, so there's two types of show, right? In that sense, some produced abroad for creative reasons, and some for commercial. Are any of you interested in unscripted incentives in the States? I know that's something that's sort of been mooted over the years, but never quite sort of got very far. Jeff?
It's certainly a lot easier for us to produce in the States than have to travel all over the world. We just shot Star Search here, so we're trying, but we tend to go where the production company is, and we work with production companies all over the world. So Golden Ticket was shot in Australia because Eureka is Australia-based, and that's where they felt most comfortable and confident to produce it. Studio Lambert is based in the UK, and that's where we're going to shoot Monopoly, as much as I would have loved to shoot it in the US because it's a lot easier for me to go to set. But again, that's where Studio Lambert was going to be the most comfortable, and to get the best product, you want the production company to feel good about it.
And also for celebrity talent too, to get 100 civilians over to Ireland is a lot easier than getting 30 celebrities to come over and spend 12 weeks. So we were excited to have the Masked Singer on our lot last season, which was super exciting for everybody to see.
Makes it a bit easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned live earlier. You mentioned Star Search earlier. There's been a big drive in live. Are you all interested in this? This does feel like the thing that can really keep audiences watching linearly. Is that... You're nodding, Alison.
Yeah, no, I think the real win is to figure out what's worth eventizing. And that's what I know we talk about all the time.
What do you think is worth eventizing?
Well, we've seen it. We've seen what Netflix has done with the fights.
Sports is always going to needs to be live, but the question is, what else beyond sports can really be eventized? I mean, we just did BTS in Korea. We did that live out of Korea for the first time for Netflix, and that was huge. That was hugely successful. Just trying to find those quintessential moments that are just everyone talks about, and fans have been waiting for. So, as opposed to just a straight concert, we need eventized concerts, and I think that's what excites live, because streaming in general was built for on demand, right? Not for forced viewing. So, you've got to give the subscriber, the viewer, a reason to come live.
You're nodding there, Jen.
I was just going to say, I think there's also something about stakes. You know, when you think about sports, or you think about watching, you know, someone's life change on a talent show, or a guy scale a building, and you're wondering if he's going to fall off. Like, it's lean in stakes.
Yeah. Rob, Mitch, is live something that you guys are interested in?
Yeah, I mean, well, we do a lot, both on the, obviously, the sort of specials that have been on for
On
decades.
Dancing and Idol.
Yeah, exactly. And then on those formats as well. I think it's just, you know, making sure it's not live for live's sake. So I think, you know, to Jen's point, just having stakes there. And I think, but on the streaming end, it's just figuring out, you know, you can do things you can't do on a broadcaster. So what is the thing that hasn't been done? Whether it's, you know, a show that has a running that's live and it ends when it ends, or, you know, just things that you couldn't normally do on a broadcaster that makes it feel special on streaming. I think the big tentpole events still feel like it's better to have a linear broadcast audience.
Lightning round, we're going to close out with this. I'm just curious, you all said the health of this industry is pretty good. If you could, you know, in one or two sentences, what's the one thing that you would like producers to do more of, less of, bring you more of, bring you less of? Is there something that's crying out for? Jeff, I'll start with you.
Look, we want shows that take more chances. We want to be bolder, and we want to hear things we haven't heard before. It's hard to specify, because if I knew what those were, I would do it myself. But if you think about a show like The Circle, which sort of broke form a little bit and didn't look like every other show, because there's sort of 5 formats out there. There's dating, there's, you know, that was established by The Bachelor, there's competitive reality, which was established by Survivor, and almost every show sort of is an offshoot of those. What's the next one? That's what we really need, and that'll then generate a lot more shows after that.
Jen?
Innovate on the familiar.
Good, nice.
You want to speed round.
Yeah, love it. Rachel?
Similarly, we don't want to be derivative. So we want to see stuff that we haven't seen before and we haven't imagined before. And then I would say on the Bravo front, cannot get past when people are pitching and producers are pitching docuseries. It's finding friends and groups of people and organizing principles, but where there is real authentic connections. Like Rhode Island Works, those women went to primary school together. So we will not fake the depth of those connections, and that's a lot of what works for us.
Mitch?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's for us, it's always finding those like universal themes, right? Things that, you know, a broad audience will relate to. And so, I mean, everybody knows this, but I think it's a huge part now. I think you have to find shows or ideas that start a social conversation outside of the show. It's, you know, it's incredibly important. Like, we see it on Big Brother, for example, which is basically live 24/7 throughout the summer. I mean, it's something that everybody's talking about around the clock. So I think that's important when you think about sort of creative for a show. What's going to sort of be that driving thing outside of the creative of the format?
Again, this is the hard part about going at the end of the line. I would just agree with everyone said.
Don't be derivative.
I think to your point, I know, I'm going to be very derivative here. Look, I think, as you said at the beginning of this, the health is really strong right now. I think everyone should be really passionate, excited about where we're going. There seems to be room for, you know, old, established stuff and new things. So, yeah, let's just have a good time.
Did you look at me when you said old?
We can take this outside, guys, but Alison,
At the very end.
Yes.
close us out with a beautiful thought.
Yeah, no, I would just say the stuff that works in social, the stuff that goes viral, is stuff that's taboo. What I would love is to find, it's something unexpected, taboo. I look at Jen O'Connell and I think how excited I was about Age of Attraction. Just, that's what I would love to hear more of.
Yeah.
So.
Good. Well, please give it up for our panel here today.